Sometimes there are TV series that you think to yourself, I bet I'm the only person who remembers that. I'm one of those people who seem cursed to love shows that died too soon or can be considered quote-unquote obscure. But every so often I'll mention one to someone and you suddenly realize you aren't alone in having loved the show, which just makes it all the more frustrating when it's taken away far too soon. Such a series is our focus on this episode of Gone But Not Forgotten, and that series is the fantastic and scientifically inclined Probe. Probe would grace the airwaves of ABC for a grand total of 8 episodes in 1988. It was smart, funny, savvy, and would be unique in the annals of not only television, but science fiction as a genre. And it would, of course, be taken away far too soon. We're going to probe into the history of Probe, and we're not going to do it alone. The star of the series himself, the great Parker Stevenson, is joining us on this journey as we remember Probe, a series gone but not forgotten. Probe would air on ABC in 1988 with a 2-part pilot that would air on Monday night, March 7th. The premise was in a way a spin on the Sherlock Holmes dynamic, but with a scientific flair and coolness factor thanks to a hero who knew how to use high tech to help solve the mysteries that he encountered. The series followed Austin James, a young and brilliant scientist who was a prodigy. He graduated from college before being old enough to drive a car or get a learner's permit. He's got an eidetic memory and can be calculating multiple problems at once. He's very much like Batman in one way in that he's wealthy to the point he doesn't even think about money and has started businesses like the think tank Serendip that he doesn't even pay attention to. Austin doesn't really have friends, and it would seem his family is fairly non-existent as well. As can happen when someone is like Austin, super intelligent and advanced way beyond his years, he's become isolated. He doesn't really know how to behave per se around people without coming across as unfeeling or, well, kind of a dick. Austin's group at Serendip has a new employee named Mickey Castle. Mickey, of the glorious hair and hurt arm, gets the delightful assignment of being Austin's secretary, something that seems to be sort of combination joke and dare at Serendip. Howard Milhouse, no relation to the Simpsons character, is head of Serendip and directs Mickey to go to Austin's house, HQ, lair, and get him to deal with a large water bill, as well as to act like he cares about the company. Mickey does as instructed and somehow answers the unanswerable limerick that Austin uses as his door code. It's there we meet Austin James in all of his glory and self-made isolation chamber. Over the course of part 1 of the pilot, Mickey tries in vain to get Austin to pay his water bill, quit numerous times, and becomes a part of an investigation regarding a rich woman who died due to freezing to death, even though her body is colder than where she is discovered, a scientific impossibility. It's in part 2 that we find out more about the other mystery from part 1, namely the man who is running for his life and is killed by a sign exploding and hitting him. Austin and Mickey discover that the murderer and entity that keeps calling Austin's phone is in fact an AI created by Austin's friend John Blaine, a man who is a combination of Stephen Hawking and Bill Gates, and who may have more aversion to people than Austin does. Blaine creates his AI named Crossover in the hopes of actually helping humanity be and do better, to get rid of waste, and to make things more streamlined, cleaner. Unfortunately, Austin discovers that Crossover has taken the concept of waste beyond just time and resources. He sees people who are now retired or using a pension as wasteful. As Austin delves further, Blaine actually realizes too late his creation is a killer and has spread across the city thanks to being given access to its systems. Crossover, like a computer Frankenstein, kills his creator when Blaine tries to stop him. Austin realizes that Crossover, in a way to validate his programming and get around that pesky do-no-harm logic, decides he's doing the people he kills a favor after watching a lot of Sunday morning sermons on the wonders of heaven. He's sending these people, including his creator, to a better place, like that farm up in the country that seems to get quite a number of pets. Austin and Mickey manage to stop the program in a rather explosive way, with Austin taking a swing with not only a sledgehammer, but also at Hal from 2001 with a quip to crossover of, "Okay, Pinhead, sing Daisy," before ending the program forever. After the chaos of the adventure, Mickey decides to stick around with Austin as his secretary, especially since we never got a total answer on how the other murder happened of the frozen wife, who Austin is pretty sure was murdered by her younger husband with liquid nitrogen. As the pilot closes, the two partners and now friends in crime solving rush off to find the answer. If this seems like some deep stuff for network TV, it's because it is. And that's due in part to what makes Probe unique. It's the only TV series one of the high lords of science fiction, Isaac Asimov, ever made. Asimov and TV guru Michael Wagner came together to make the series, which would not only be a mystery series, but also take on some deep subjects that were way ahead of their time. The pilot dealt with artificial intelligence, something we're really surrounded by right now, but back in the late 80s was really only hinted at, and really only seen in a massive way with Terminator, which was beyond belief. Here, it was something that was living inside your personal computer and was given free rein to a city's entire grid. The logic within crossover was actually chilling, and the twist, which is very human when you think about it, of justifying getting rid of the waste by murdering people by sending them to heaven due to the religious belief of a machine, is truly chef's kiss. This was helped by the script for the pilot coming from Sander Stern, the man responsible for the very unnerving movie Hen, which he also directed. When I asked Parker Stevenson about what made Probe so unique and his experiences filming the show, he said,
"Well, for me, it came through in all the stories, what the stories were about. I mean, it was the one that it kind of haunts me is the one we did with a real orangutan, the idea of the intelligence of an orangutan versus us, and what's comparable and what's slightly different, and do they have abilities beyond us, and all of that was and working with an orangutan, being on the set, doing scenes with an orangutan, totally unique for an acting experience. I mean, it's just, I wasn't off with Diane Fossey working, with apes, in the jungle. We were on a set in Phoenix, in that sound stage, with all the equipment, all the lights, and all the people standing around doing the normal work of making a show. But then having this fellow performer be from another species was why I love the show. I mean, I really thought that show was going to run a long time. I just thought this is with Isaac's ideas coming through, and Michael Wagner was the producer writer on it with Adam Levy. They were easy to work with. It ran really smoothly. Being in Phoenix was kind of new then, to go off and do a show and not be the studio in LA. But the isolation of that made the show move better and made it more efficient to do.
Over its brief run, Probe would tackle animal testing, nuclear energy risks, and mood-altering medications. Mind you, this was only 8 episodes, so who knows where it could have gone if given the opportunity. Sadly, as we all know, Probe didn't get the chance to go beyond this handful of episodes, as ABC decided to move the series opposite the juggernaut that was late 80s Thursday night on NBC. If you don't remember that death cull for any other network, it included The Cosby Show, A Different World, Cheers, and LA Law, just to give you an idea. Thursday was not the night to try something different. The series not only had a great pedigree behind the camera, but in front of it. This started, of course, with Parker Stevenson as Austin James. Stevenson was a recognizable face from his work in TV and film, and he brought to Austin a boyish wonder that made his moments of abrasiveness and awkwardness work. Parker went into more detail on how he got the role on Probe.
I don't remember a lot of the details of the casting, except at that point, I had a deal, at ABC, production deal to develop stuff and do stuff and TV movies. So I was already kind of approved by ABC. I had a show on with the Hardy Boys, and I guess they felt I fit it. And as it turned out, it was challenging, but it was the easiest work I've ever had, because the Probe was like the inside of my brain. Just how I think, it's how I approach things. I'm over analytical, and all that was just a nice fit. It was just easy to do.
And that makes it more evident why he loves the show so much and continues to. And it's testament to his performance and how well done the series was that even with its limited run, so many people remember it fondly. Parker agrees and elaborated on what elevated Probe above other shows at the time.
There's people that...
People who saw it loved it.
Yeah.
And but that's not always the case. People see something and they go, hey, dude, you made a mistake. No, the Probe was special. It really was different. And and maybe it's, I did a show much later on that just a kind of a passion project. It was called Avalon: Adventures in the Abyss. And what I loved about it is Bob Ballard, who discovered the Titanic and the Bismarck and the deep sea vents, down in the bottom of the Pacific. He discovered all that stuff, and he was our consultant through the show. And you don't get snippets of knowledge. you get enough time to get deep into what some of those ideas are, and it shifts things. So, Isaac didn't just show up, at the beginning and say, yeah, you can use my name or my title or that book, but he was a real participant. And so you get a totally different level of conceptual creativity. And that's, I think, what makes it better.
Opposite Parker Stevenson was Ashley Crowe as Mickey Castle. Mickey was more than just a John Watson for Austen's Holmes. She brought him something he hadn't really had, which was a friend and someone who could see him for what he was, that same super intelligent boy in the body of a brilliant man. Austen never really got a childhood, and she was the perfect playmate to run alongside him. Mickey was chaos with a purpose, and Austen loved chaos. It was a perfect match. Ashley Crowe came from a background of working on TV and daytime drama and making the jump to primetime as well as films. Gone But Not Forgotten fans will remember her from her turn as Noah Bennett's wife Sandra, aka the cheerleader's mom, in Heroes. Parker had these thoughts on his co-star.
She's crushable. I mean, when I first met her, I'm like, oh, I have such a crush on this girl. Because there's such a sweetness about her. And most of my time with her was her sort of in and around being in character. So that's the Ashley that I really got to, I knew better than Ashley herself, who went on and did some amazing work in lots of shows and films and stuff. She's a wonderful actress. But what she dialed into in that show was the perfect foil, because it gave me room to be eccentric and almost rabid, running all over the place. And she somehow managed to stay with me and stay up with her. And it was just a really nice combination. It really was a two-handed show.
Probe had a new wave soundtrack to go along with the science-driven plot, thanks to composer Sylvester LeVay. LeVay's tunesmith stylings will also be familiar with Gone But Not Forgotten fans, with series like Airwolf to his credit, and interestingly, action films like Stone Cold and Cobra, to name a few. The last episode of Probe aired on April 14th of 1988. It was called Quit It, and dealt with a perfect suburban community that was becoming ground zero of a drug to stop you from smoking, and literally any independent thought, and leaving them open to the power of suggestion, to the point of possible murder. Again, Probe being ahead of its time about how mood-altering drugs can do a lot of good, but also can turn bad really fast. Stevenson has this to say about the cancellation.
I've been lucky to be on enough shows and unlucky enough to be on enough shows that the networks they feel like maybe we could do better if we swap this show out and bring in something else. And usually that doesn't work. And usually you need to stay with the show and let it find its audience and find a following, and then it will slowly grow. But even when I did the Hardy Boys, ABC got hungry for better ratings, even though it was doing well, but it wasn't a blockbuster. I thought we could have a blockbuster, so let's just dump this and get something else. And that happened with Probe. It's happened with a bunch of shows I've done.
As yet, Probe has never been released on DVD or Blu-ray. This really needs to be fixed. But it was re-shown on the Sci-Fi Channel back in the 90s, but some very kind individuals have uploaded all the episodes, in not great quality since they're from VHS rips, to YouTube. As we always ask on this show, should Probe return? And it sounds like Parker Stevenson would be more than happy to come back as an older, possibly wiser Austin James. I personally would love to see Austin and Mickey come back together to solve some sort of insane plot. What made Probe great is the same reason Doctor Who is so special and is a sort of hero we need to see more of in the world. Austin James and the Doctor both are characters who don't use violence. The sledgehammer was necessary, okay? But use their brains and intelligence to stop the bad guys and to figure out the mystery. Austin James may not have been comfortable around people and may have come off as odd to some, but that didn't mean he didn't have a heart. As he tells Mickey when she questions his idea of love, he tells her how he created a prosthetic device for people who couldn't walk. Maybe they have different ideas on what love was. Austin, while he put a lot of faith in computers and tech, also had a lot of faith in humanity and wanted to see it fulfill the potential he personally knew it could. He used intellect, not a gun. He used thinking, not punching, to solve the case.
When it came to the importance of science and how Austin used it, Parker Stevenson had this to say.
Exploring the actual ideas of something and what we can pull together as the facts of something and making sense of it is what education's about. How do you make an assessment of what's true and what's not? Well, you have to approach it analytically. That's what scientists do. That's what mathematicians do. That's what progress comes from. So his approach, I think, is relevant in all areas of our experience of life and can make the difference of a life that runs off the rails or a life that actually can kind of somehow stay stable.
Austin James is the kind of hero we need more of, especially these days. Was a teenager watching a neat little show on network TV, could look up to and think, maybe being weird, different, and smart is okay, and could even be a superpower.